Today on Locked On Red Wings, David Perron's three-point night carries Detroit to a 5-0 shutout victory over the Montreal Canadiens.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And Scotty, the Red Wings, I think you pointed out right before we were about to record, Red Wings are what now? 4 for 5 in their, 4 out of their last 5.
Yeah, I think that's 4 wins in our last 5, yeah.
You're right. Penguins, Hurricanes lost to the Jets. We don't talk about that one. Win over the Leafs, win over the Canadiens. And
so if you only look at games we've broken down, we've actually won 4 straight.
That's the trick to it. You know, we only recap games we win. And that way it looks like the Red Wings have a 1,000 win percentage throughout the rest of the season. It's perfect.
Yeah. I don't know why more people don't do this.
It's a simple solution to make sure your team wins the Stanley Cup every single time, except for the fact that we only recap after the games happen, but whatever. We got to talk about that. David Perron, Scotty, 3-point night again, as I think he's got like 9 points in his last 6, something insane like that. Let me double check on that. But David Perron has been the second half of the season. He's turned it on. It's a 4th straight year, 50 points or more on this season. He's been great.
He's been absolutely great. And you know, like going into this acquisition of Perron, like we constantly talked about the leadership qualities and what he would bring to kind of like the special teams, and that, you know, like he's won an A before and all that stuff. And seeing him in the second half specifically, when this team, like, we've talked about it a lot, for lack of a better term, has nothing to play for. And yet his production has never been higher. And this team is still winning games at a great clip in our last 5 games, as we said. Like, that's nice to see. Like, we've talked about it a lot. Like, if you're part of the tanking crowd, like that ship has sailed, really, not only for me for this season, but just at where we're at in the rebuild. And I think that those veteran presences like that can continue producing and lead us to victories and stuff, even with not very much to play for, kind of when the remainder of the season is very important for I know it's kind of like a trigger word lately, but like culture.
No, but culture is important. And you brought David Perron in to be a locker room leader and also produce on the ice, which he has done. I mean, he comes to Detroit. All 3 of the big name acquisitions the Red Wings made in the offseason have rotated the letter A on their jerseys this year. Perron, Kopp, Shutout, and that was clearly part of the game plan for Steve Yzerman, is get leadership in that locker room to help foster that winning culture. And David Perron is good enough to do it on the ice as well as in the locker room. 4 straight seasons now. He only has 7 seasons total under his belt in his career where he scored more than 50 points, and 4 of them now have come consecutively, one of which was a 60-point season. He had 27 goals last year. He has now 22 goals this year. I doubt he's going to reach that marker from last year again, but he's in that same vicinity, wheelhouse. He's 34 years old, guys. He's not a young guy. And we talked about it when they signed him. When you sign David Perron, you're getting exactly what you're signing. He has enough years under his belt producing at that level, at that clip, that it's almost a guarantee, barring an injury, that this is what you're going to get out of him. And I know he was quiet for part of the year, struggling to convert on getting opportunities, but struggling to convert on the power play, hitting posts, just couldn't buy a goal. And now he's finally broke through. As I double checked, he's got 9 points in his last 5 games, which is crazy. As that, him moving up on that top line with Dylan Larkin and even Dominic Kubalik. I mean, that line's been clicking, even though Kubalik hasn't scored. It feels like outside of, he had one really good goal, the breakaway goal against the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the one that went off his butt in the last 5 games.
I was going to say.
that top line is clicking, which is great considering that the top line that we previously had come to know and love broke down completely with the trade of Bertuzzi away and sliding Raymond down on the second line. But Perron was the second best player on this team tonight in expected goals for percentage, 79% at expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5, which is, I mean, he excels on the power play, right? So for him to be able to translate that to even strength time is great as well. And of course, with 2 goals and an assist, when you go to Hockey Stat Card, which is hugely impacted by actual on-ice production, he was the best player far and away, almost 6. He was 5.5 game score value, which is incredible for an individual game. But that's no surprise, again, with 2 goals and 1 assist and one of the beautiful breakaway goal.
Yeah,
loved it.
Beauty, absolute beauty. This was a look like we talk about it a lot. Like, good teams win games you're supposed to, and I know that this is, we have single digit amount of games left, and the Wings, even if they win out, aren't well.
You would have to have everyone else lose out, and you
right,
win
yeah,
out.
pretty much not making the playoffs, right? Like, you're at a point now where you're I think this is the kind of stuff you're playing for. You're playing for the continued development of young players. You're playing for the culture, the kind of thing that we talked about earlier, bringing a winning environment into the locker room, and I like it. I don't need to lose anymore. I don't need like a whatever it is, 0.5% or a 2% better chance at a better pick or whatnot. I'll take some winning that will, hopefully that core of winning and that winning environment will carry over into next season.
I mean, you're right. I'm right there with you. And we've said it on this podcast. And, and to the people who are rooting for the team to just tank and get the best pick possible,
I don't not understand it.
Yeah,
like
I don't
you know what I mean?
disagree.
Like, I'm not ignorant to why like that. And if they do lose and it leads to us getting better, like I'm not gonna be like heartbroken, because at the end of the day we aren't playing for anything. But good team, like I said earlier, like good teams beat bad teams. Like good teams win the games they're supposed to. This is a game that the Red Wings were supposed to win. They comfortably won in close to dominant fashion. I'm glad.
No, you bring up 2 big things, and like you were saying, I don't disagree with anyone who focuses on tanking, because I get that. You want a higher draft pick. It gives you a better opportunity to get the best player available. I get that. But this team has been tanking for so long, and you're staring down an opportunity. And I know that, again, the counter argument to what I'm about to say is, well, who really cares about that if you don't make the playoffs? And I get that. But you're staring down an opportunity right now with 5 games left. You're 3 points away from 82 points on the season. You're 3 points away from a 500 win percentage, something you have not accomplished since the 2015-2016 season. And that, even if the Red Wings did not make that, it's still a win of a year. Like, it's still a step forward year. But just that marker, hitting that milestone, like in my eyes, is just screams, we might be taking baby steps, but the improvement is there. And this team is getting better. And I do recognize also that when you're going out, and you mentioned it already too, good teams win the games they should win. This was an absolute must win in regards to like the type of team you were playing, not in terms of like playoff implications. The Montreal Canadiens have like 12 injuries. They showed it during the game. They have like a full roster's worth of injuries to their team right now. They're playing mostly AHL players. So putting up 5 goals on the Montreal Canadiens might not be as big of a flex as we hope it is, but it still is important from the regard that the team went out there and they took care of business against the team they should. In years prior, I mean, hell, even this season prior, they would go out against the Arizona Coyotes.
Have you watched a Red Wings versus Coyotes game in the last 3 years?
Or Wings against Chicago? The Chicago Blackhawks haven't been getting good either, and they still lose to them. So going to Montreal against a severely banged up team that even when they were healthy wasn't very good,
right,
and putting a 5 spot on them and not allowing a single goal, that's still like a win. That's still a good thing. That's what teams should do.
I completely agree.
All right, when we come back, we're going to continue breaking down this hockey game. Got to talk to you guys today about Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talented roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't need to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Scotty, I know from personal experience that Indeed is pretty much the best website out there for both hiring and being hired. As somebody who had to, during COVID, apply to a bunch of jobs because I was out of work, it led to a lot of fruitful opportunities that I, ended up not following through on due to either they found a better candidate, which is what Indeed's great for as well, or just me deciding it wasn't the best move for myself. But it was great for me to get my voice out there and get interviews from all over the country. And then when I was at LCA, I talk about it all the time. Using Indeed was like the primary way we hired people because it funneled the best candidates to us and made it easier than ever to pick out the right people. So go to Indeed.com. They know when you're growing your business, you know you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're recapping the 5-0 victory over the Montreal Canadiens. Scotty, who else stood out to you in this hockey game?
Well, I mean, we can do the obvious one. We could talk Ville Husso. I mean, that's especially with when was the last time he played?
Well, I can tell you that answer real quick if you just fill the air.
Okay. So I mean, great performance. Obviously, the shutout. But it's nice to see. We want to see him end on a high note. This is a guy who I think has certainly
March 20th against the Panthers.
There you go. So it's been a while since he's been on the ice for us, and we thought at one point it was he's going to be done for the year type of thing. So to come back and get a shutout in one of the last games of the year, beautiful. We will take all the positive momentum we possibly can for the dudes that we know are going to be on this hockey team next year. And Husso is obviously going to be a not only on the team, but a focal point of this hockey team next season. So really good to see him again. Not a very good opponent. And I thought the defense played really, really well, which is something we haven't been able to say too terribly often this season. But everybody did their jobs in this game, and everybody did what they were supposed to do against our opponent. And Husso is probably the best example. Him and Perron are probably the two best examples of that.
This is the second time that Husso shut out the Montreal Canadiens this season, too. The first time being the home opener in his Red Wings debut, where the Red Wings won 3-0. But this was kind of the perfect game for Ville Husso to get back into it after having been injured, because it was against a really banged up team that didn't put a lot of shots on him. They only had 24 shots, which might be the lightest workload he's had all season. And there weren't very many high danger opportunities against Ville Husso in this hockey game either. So while he earned the shutout, the workload was light. And I think, they only had 3 high danger shots at 5-on-5 in this hockey game. So not a lot of dangerous opportunities for the Montreal Canadiens at all. So while it is certainly still a deserved shutout, I'm not trying to take anything away, but in terms of workload, this was the perfect get your feet back wet and, try to finish the season strong type game for Ville Husso.
No, for sure. And I think that's a great point, because we are so often deemed the goalie defenders. And I think that the reason that we do that, it's important to note, is because this defense has been so brutal for the last 3 or 4 years that it's over a large sample size. I have a hard time believing very many goalies on the planet would have fared too well behind this defense that we've had over the last few seasons. But in games like this, where the defense really does step up and eliminates next to all high danger opportunities, and is making sure, as you said, like all the shots are kind of coming from not only the same area, but the same really low danger areas. They deserve a ton of credit. So kind of in the opposite breath of like the defending goalies at all costs things on this team, it's also important to do the other side of that when something like this happens. And the defense, certainly round of applause to the entire blue line and the forwards. I mean, this team pisses me off because they have such an ability to, like, when they are aggressive on the forecheck, it's beautiful. It's just that sometimes, whether it's the flow of the game or whether it's a lack of offense on their end, so they can't really afford to do it, they won't sometimes, or it'll break apart really easily. But like when this team wants to forecheck, they actually do really well. It's just something that consistently they can't game plan for just on a consistent enough basis.
Yeah, and speaking of offense, Lucas Raymond got his first goal in almost a
What a
month,
beauty.
Scotty. It was a ripper, too. And you know what? He almost got his pocket picked, but he maintained possession and then just quick release, beat Primo right underneath the shoulder. It was right above the shoulder, rather. It was a quick release, a beautiful release. And I didn't realize, he's still got over 40 points on the season right now. And he's been getting assists, but he hasn't been scoring as much. He might get to 20 goals by the end of the year. But again, I'm not too concerned about his production this early on in his career. This is about growth for him. But I was shocked when I saw that was his first goal since March 8th against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize it'd been that
wild,
long for him without a goal.
It's a long time.
Man, before the March 8th goal, he hadn't scored since January 21st. So it's been a really...
So that's one goal since January. Not before tonight, he had one goal since January 22nd.
Yes. 21st.
Yeah.
That's a long time. I didn't realize his goal scoring. He had been in that big of a drought, finding the back of the net. He's still been getting assists, still picking up assists, but because I know there was a section of the year where he was hot, but I didn't realize he had cooled off that much. But it was a good game for Lucas Raymond, I thought. I thought Joe Veleno had a fantastic freaking game. He looked
at home.
Return home, yes.
At home for Joey V.
Same with Perron, which might also have been part of the reason why. These French Canadians, man, they love coming back home and lighting up their hometown team.
They do. Do they? Oh, do they? Yeah, no, it was a beauty, man. And I think we started the game with all Canadians on the ice.
Yes, Chase on as well, outside of obvious guys who weren't Canadian.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
They made a note of that. They interviewed Joey V before the game because of he's not only Canadian, but he's from Quebec. So they interviewed him before the game and he talked about coming home and whatnot. But getting starting off the game with all Canadians was cool to see. And I mean, clearly, led to a pretty good night.
Yeah, and Joe Veleno, obviously, he got the deflection power play goal off of Jake Wallman's shot. Dominic Kubalik picking up the secondary on that one. But outside of that, I mean, right after that, he almost scored, or didn't score, but set up his line mate on a beautiful feed as well, where he danced through the Montreal defense and then made a pass that was just ahead of his line mate, whose name is escaping me, who was on that play right now. But he looked very creative all game long. And I thought, like you said, the Red Wings offense in general looked pretty dang creative all game long. Passing was crisp. They were finding open areas. And again, part of that has to do with the caliber of opponent you're up against. They were very banged up, but it's good to see the Red Wings allow themselves to have their creative juices flowing.
Yeah, well, and that's something, again, like that you're going to hear this a lot in game recaps the last few games of the season, but this is, again, something we have talked about a lot this season. And it was really nice to see. And, I mean, again, I don't want to be a broken record, but like good team or bad, it's nice to see a dominant victory because those are not only are those few and far between just in the National Hockey League in general, because this is the National Hockey League, but especially for your Detroit Red Wings over the last few years. So I'm never going to complain about something like that. And yeah, the offense, what led to the creativity too, I think, was just clean zone entries, which we've talked about a million times, has been such a frustrating part of this offense this year and something that they have never really kind of figured out a consistent way to do that, except for the pass back dump offs that we love so much here. So yeah, it was nice to just see some clean zone entries, some maintained possession and some creative plays drawn up.
Yeah, I gotta love those drop back passes. Dude? They're the greatest. Matt Luff got a goal too in this game, second of the season.
What do you got to say now, huh?
Jonathan Berggren did all the work on that play. Jonathan Berggren got down in the corner, got tripped up, came to the front of the net, made the play that freed that puck up, got obliterated in front of the net. That puck squirted loose to Luff, who just buried it home. Bergen did all the work on that play. But good
Yes,
for
he
Matt
did.
Luff regardless, because, we root for our fringe NHL guys to continue to perform well.
You know what Matt Luff is?
The cat.
That's a dog.
He's a lion.
It's an awful joke.
I know. I'm aware. You know what's not awful? FanDuel Sportsbook. Sorry, buddy. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss out on the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, any other guys you want to give a quick shout out to that you thought had a pretty impressive game? There's a lot of guys in this game, but can't get to them all.
I don't know, man. We already talked about a lot of the
I have one. If you don't have anyone off top of
go for it.
Simon Edvinsson. I thought he was playing with a ton of confidence in this game. A ton of confidence.
I think a lot of people kind of took notice too. If a lot of the fan base during this game was kind of talking about how good Edvinsson looked, and that's good, man. I mean, opponent, who cares with a rookie? You know what I mean? Like, this is, if you wanna take that next step and be a solidified NHLer, you got to be better than the worst teams, right? That's like how development works. So, yeah, awesome to see that, and I think a lot of people took notice, which is also cool to see.
He was second on the team at even strength minutes, 16 minutes at even strength in this game, second only to his partner, Ben Sherratt, at 17:55. Lightening the workload on Seider and Wallman, it seems, down the stretch. They're giving more ice time to Edvinsson and Sherratt, probably trying to see what they can get. Kind of like how the other night, Casper, who did not play in this game, he's day-to-day with a lingering issue. They say he should play on Thursday. But Marco Casper was third on the team in even strength ice time the other night as well. So it's like the point of the rest of the season. Him out there.
I'm all for it. I think we're all for it.
I think
it's the whole point.
I think the only thing that might hurt Simon Edvinsson is, one, he takes a lot of penalties. He had another penalty again in this game, an interference that was like a clear interference. Like, did not try to disguise it at all. So putting your team down a man is always going to be painful. And just overall general risk assessment, part of that confidence is the double-edged sword, where sometimes you step up into plays that maybe you can't handle. And I noticed that a couple times too. But I think as he gets more experience, he'll learn better when to take that risk and when to not take that risk. Jump up in the play, not jump up in the play. When to, take your guy out and to not take your guy out, because you might be taking yourself out of the play with it. So, but there is so much growth and potential there that I'm super excited to see what it can bring next year, because those two little things I've mentioned are things that can be fixed so quickly. So I'm really pumped for more Edvinsson.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think, I'm not just trying to blow smoke. Like, I do think that playing with Sherratt could help that somewhat if both are aware of what's happening with their pairing the remainder of the season, because we've seen really good games from that pairing, and like really good games. We've seen, like, dare I say, peak Ben Sherratt in a Wings uniform when he's been paired with Edvinsson. And we've also seen bad games from that pairing. So I think they're, right. And so I think that there's still, if I feel like you're going into next season, there's somewhat of an understanding that it's Seider, and if no defensemen are added, Wallman again, and, free agency, whatever, that's a whole different conversation. But which then presumably, again, if you don't add anyone, the second pairing would probably be Edvinsson and Sherratt going into the season. Is that ridiculous to say? So, like, I think that you are trying to get them familiar with each other and see if this can be a long-term pairing for the next, who knows, 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's
And I'm not
spot
saying
on.
the decision's going to be made in the last 7 games of the 2023 season either. Like, that's obviously fluid, but you got to start somewhere.
What's funny too is we originally were like Edvinsson and Sider, that's the dream pairing, and I'm like maybe eventually. But right now, that Wallman Sider pairing is clicking so well. I would not break that up whatsoever. But the idea of having Edvinsson on the second pair
Well,
is
also,
like
I don't know.
That's good.
Spread the love, baby. Share the sugar. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
If we've seen it a lot, we've seen it with Red Wings teams in the past. Like, it's not necessarily your two best defensemen are at the top pair together. Like, that's not how it works. I'm not going to say most of the time, but definitely not often either. Like, that's a pretty common thing for teams to do to spread out talent there. So yeah, even if Edvinsson turns into a really, really good defenseman, it's not like guaranteed that, it's just, going to be those two at the top, especially if they kind of lack depth behind them.
Outside of that, Scotty, I think Olimata had a pretty dang good game. His best game in a while, I would say. In fact, he had 2 points in this one, both secondary assists, primary and a secondary assist, rather. But he also had a really crucial 2-on-1 breakup in the third period, I think. It might have been the second. I can't quite remember. But it kept the game, it kept the shutout alive. So, and I believe he was, according to Hockey Stat Card, he was the third best player on the team. Yes, he was. Jordan Osterley was second, by the way. A lot of that has to do with the insane breakaway pass he made to David Perron. It was an insane feed across ice. A lot of players just had really good games against a really beat up team. I'm not going to go down the entire list, but I don't think there was
pretty much the whole roster.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show it to you. There wasn't a single player that was a net negative in this game. There were some guys who had a little bit of negative, but nobody was a net negative in this game, according to Hockey Stat Card. Like, everyone was a net positive asset on the ice, and that's just how good the Red Wings played and how beat up the Montreal Canadiens are.
Man. Dang.
Yeah, I told you, second best on the team. But you just go down the list. It's all nothing but positives for the Detroit Red Wings. And then, if you go to expected goals for percentage, there was only 2 players on the team that finished below 50% expected goals for percentage. That would be Ernie and Chason. And everyone else was well above it, 50% or more. Dominic Kubalik, 84%. Perron, 79%. Osterley, Sherratt, 66%. Which is funny is Matt Luff finished with 66% expected goals for percentage in this game. But again, that's sample size, I think, has a lot to do with that. We love our sample sizes.
For sure.
So, yeah, overall, man, just a successful hockey game. They stave off elimination yet again, as if they had lost, they wouldn't have still been in the playoff race. Not that I expect them to make the playoffs, but I'm like, hey, cool, just keep that alive as long as possible.
Yeah, man, keep it alive as long as you possibly can. I'm about it.
So the thing, too, is the Red Wings can max out at 89 points. So the minute I think because the head-to-head matchups matter, but I can't remember the exact head-to-head matchups. I know the Panthers whooped your butt all season long. But with the 2 wildcard places, the Panthers, the Islanders are at 87 points, and the Penguins are at 86 points. The moment any of those 3 teams breaches 89 and goes to 90, you're out. It's just, you're out. No can do it. It stinks, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. I think you've won 2 of your 3 matchups against Pittsburgh, so you'd have the head-to-head there, I believe. Again, they're not going to make the playoffs, but I'm just for clarity's sake, I'm thinking out loud, basically. So I know you won one of the games against the Islanders, but I can't remember. I know you lost at least one of the other one. I can't remember the third one. I think they might have the season series. So
I don't remember either.
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure they have the season series. So the moment the Islanders and the Panthers win one more game and go to 89 points, you're going to be eliminated because the Red Wings themselves can only max out at 89, and they don't have the tiebreaker between the two. And so it'll probably be, it could be as early as like Thursday. I mean, that's the reality we now sit in with the Detroit Red Wings, but there's a lot to be proud of with the fact that it's April 4th. They're above 500 and they're not out of the playoffs yet. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago that they were eliminated in February? Yeah, that's 2020. So they've been 3 years ago now, the 2020 draft, when they were eliminated in February. 3 years later, now the Red Wings are a week and a half away from the end of the season, and they're still in it. There's a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely.
Scotty, any final thoughts, man?
Go Tigers, baby. We ball.
Torque tank. We'll be back with a new
Green and
episode
Torque 6 for 8.
Yeah, that's great. That's what you
I
want.
want
out
the
of this
world
Tigers
to
team.
know we back up.
Okay, well they're 2-3 on the season. Although it is pretty exciting that they went to Houston. They historically are pretty good at beating Houston, aren't they? At least recent history. It feels like they beat Houston every time they play them.
No, but always still cool to beat them. They're a much better team than us. And yeah, we have a chance to sweep them now. So
yeah, and get back to 500.
Yes, sir.
Series bound and picking up steam. Go get 'em, Tigers. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.